The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Just want to say welcome to everybody who's jumping in right now. We'll begin here shortly. We're about 5 minutes early today, so we'll just hang tight, make sure everything's working A-OK. If you've joined us before, you probably know the spiel, but if you have not, you are muted upon entry, so you should be A-OK as you come in. So feel free to make that last second call or type away on the laptop or desktop that you have. Just make sure your speakers are working A-OK. If you're tied up with the speakers, if you are alone, you might have your headphones on. Make sure those headphones. I am talking at the moment, so you should be able to hear some audio and see the screen. Experiential learning: how to create meaningful learning for classroom and post-graduation success. As you join us today, you should be able to see on your control panel, if you're joining us on the laptop or desktop, there is a handout section. Like our previous ones, if you've joined us, the handouts is going to have the certificate, and it's also going to have the sign-in sheet. Now, the sign-in sheet is for your own purposes. I don't need a sign-in sheet when you guys log in. We can record the names and stuff. If you need an official count, we can always share that with you. But for your own sake, at your own campus, if it's maybe 12 of you joining in a room, putting up on the projector, there's a sign-in sheet on as a handout that you can quickly print out in the next couple of minutes here if you want to. Everything's going to be available on the ACCSC website, so you can make sure you visit there in the next day or two. If you can't download the certificate, if you need the recording, my slideshow I'll share with the powers that be at ACCSC who work their magic and convert it and put it up on the website for everyone to view. The copy of the slideshow will be up there, and a recording of this webinar will be up there as well. So if you have to bolt out for an emergency halfway through or here in a couple of minutes, that's okay. We'll make sure we get the content to you. You can also email me. I'll share my email at the very end. If you need it right now, it's david.grimes, david.grimes at Cianna, CYANNA.com. I'll be more than happy to help you out if you want to email me. Again, if you're just joining us, hang tight for a little bit. We have a couple more minutes before we start. You can check out those handouts in this section, and you can also check in the control panel there. I see people joining in still, so that's a great thing. So I'm going to take a look up on the screen here and see people that they're still populated in, so we'll kind of hang tight for a little bit. Got some highs in there. All right, Olga, Monica. Hello. Got some more hellos coming in. So Olga, Monica, hello. I'm hoping Mayada. That's a cool name. I like that one. Hello, Christine. Hello. Lots of Hugo, Jay. I see some names in there. Hope anybody joining me for the trifecta today. We had 2 last week. We got 1 this week. Again, all our recordings are up on the ACCSC website. So if you didn't miss us last week, definitely jump back on the website. You can check out the recordings. My slideshows are up there. Certificates also up there too. So if you need that certificate, you can get those certificates from the other time. Let's see. How long do they need to download the certificate with their name on it? Good question. I believe the certificate that's supplied is a document file, so you can click on that document, edit it in Word. I know some of us are joining together as a team today, so if you want to print out that one as a template, and then you can either share it with individuals or just type in David, and then print it out, then type in Diane, print it out, type in Jay, print it out, whatever you want to do. You can edit the certificate in that handout section as a document file. ACCSC also shares that certificate on their website. If you go to events and then webinar, there will be the recordings and everything, but there'll also be a document that will be the certificate as well. So if you have any type of word processor, hopefully Microsoft Word, I know, shows up the best. If you have another third party, sometimes the text gets misaligned. You have to tweak it a little bit. But you can edit the names on there. So if you're just joining us, hang tight for a moment. I see people populating. We're hitting the top of the hour here, so I don't want to wait too much longer. But I got lots of people popping in still. Tom from Charleston. Hey, I've got a school down there. Rob from Northwest Ohio. I am located in Ohio today. It's like 70 degrees. It's kind of windy, but it's actually very beautiful. Most of that snow has melted in my yard, so it's looking good out from my window here. Hopefully it's good weather out where you're at. I appreciate it. Again, if you're joining us just at this moment, I'll do my last spiel of this and we'll kind of jump into it. We will start the experiential learning, how to create meaningful learning for classroom and post-graduation success. We will share the slideshow, the recording, the certificate, and I think the sign-in sheet they'll also share up on the accsc.org website. If you go to events and then go to webinar, not only will I have this one, but I'll have the two that we did last week as well. So by the end of this week, we should have 4 recordings up there, 4 certificates up there, 4 of my slideshows up there for you guys to enjoy. And if you need to share it with other people, or if you can't make it to one of these ones, definitely check out that ACCSC website. The team does a great job in getting all that information. I just know the recordings happen in somewhere in the cloud, and um, Chris Lambert and all that and their team, they do some magic, and poof, it's all up there, all in one spot. So I appreciate all their help on this endeavor, and hopefully you guys get to enjoy that too. So again, the handout and the certificates are in the handout section on your control panel. If you can't access the control panel, I know it's troublesome on my iPhone. Sometimes I can't access the control panel. If you're on a mobile device, hang tight. That certificate will be up on the website probably in the next day or two. I don't like to put them on the spot, but usually last week, it was after about a day, they had the certificate, the recordings and whatnot all up on the website. So if you're just joining us, just sit back, relax. You should be muted upon entry, so feel free to talk amongst yourselves as you go through. If you have to leave or whatever else, again, this is all going to be recorded and shared up on the ACCSC website. Appreciate you joining me today. If you have any questions, you could also pop them into the questions section on the control panel. Jerry says 80 degrees here in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. That's my family vacation spot up there by North Myrtle. So I will still take that. I'll be more than happy to go there. Rob says rainy day in Toledo. I'm going to be up in Toledo in a couple weeks from now. We're going to be up at a college there presenting. So hopefully I get to go up there. 30 degrees in Southern California. Wow. All right. I got Texas, Washington. I want to thank everybody for joining us here today. I appreciate you guys chiming in today. We'll get started here. It's just a couple minutes past the hour. I think the attendees are slowing down. I see a couple trickling in. So if you're just joining us, we'll begin here. We'll kind of continue the conversation that we had last week. Now, you don't need to have any knowledge of the slideshows that we did and the webinar we did last week. Although you might see some things tie in. You might be like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I see what we talked about last week and how it could tie in today and even on Thursday. So we will have a follow-up, kind of a part 4 in our series here on Thursday. But for today, we're going to focus on experiential learning. And what our goal today is to create meaningful learning for classrooms and post-graduation success. Because again, I always say that, at least in my experience, a lot of my students, they're not in my classroom because they just love learning and they love seeing me every day. They're here for that job, that career at the end of the rainbow. And we're here to help them along that path and towards their academic path, because that graduation is also important, but also to that career path. And hopefully we can do our part in helping them, learn effectively to get all that information they need for certification, for whatever, to be successful on the job. And hopefully we can impart that into them in the classroom. So to kick off here, let's start at the basics and, wrap our minds around, what exactly is experiential learning. So we say this thing, and it can mean a lot of things, and I'm going to try to maybe condense it here in a little bit. So before we can, do some new activities or maybe fine tune our own lessons in our own classrooms, I think we should define the meaning here of what is experiential learning. And I just want to start off and just say there's 2 big types, and we'll kind of focus on one mostly, but I just want to introduce two general umbrella types that we have for experiential learning. One, there's going to be field-based, which I think we're pretty familiar with if you have students who go into an internship. That's like the field-based ones. We also have classroom experiences, and we'll kind of focus more so on the classroom experiences. We will touch on some field-based exercises that we can do, but we'll kind of focus on this classroom experience and focus on what is this, learning by experiential activities. So what we have here, experiential learning just means learning from doing. So what is doing? This just means, learning through action, learning through experience, learning through discovery, and on the last one there, learning through exploration. Now, I want to note that, learning by doing is a big general statement. I just want to impart this little part in there is that, it's just not simple participation. It's not like having students get out of their chairs, go in the corner of the room and work on an activity that they're actually moving and they're actually, quote unquote, doing something. It doesn't automatically qualify for an experiential learning experience. A little deeper dive is needed to get students involved in the learning process to support our students in applying their knowledge, maybe applying their own understanding to real world problems or to authentic situations that we want to do. So the instructors, you and I, for example, we kind of direct the learning, we might facilitate the learning. And then on the student side, he or she will manage his or her own learning rather than being told what to do and when to do it. So when you think about it, the relationship between the students and ourselves as educators, it's a little different than the standard of being in front of the classroom and doing a lecture. We kind of pass on some of the responsibility of the learning and the learning process onto our students when we do this experiential learning. And also to help promote this experiential environment, it does involve this motivation. And so this entails, engagement with purpose. So you want to keep in mind, we want engagement with purpose. We want to have the students have some type of emotional investment into the learning process. And you also want to present some type of meaningful relationship so they can have this relationship to what is learning in the classroom to what is actually they're going to be doing out in the job. So those are some of like the background, the all learning by doing type of information. And again, just to note that we may be working in a group environment when we do some of these activities. We'll show some examples here in a little bit. But since we are in a group activity and we are kind of letting the students go about their own learning in their own way, you're not kind of pushing on the knowledge directly to them. They're kind of experimenting, kind of finding it on their own. You want an environment where they could have this group setting where there's reflection. They can see these big picture perspectives. And so you want to promote an environment free of judgment because you don't want someone to, go on the path of trying to find the answer, but then they get ridiculed or someone has a smart comment. So you want to make sure you do have that environment where you kind of nurture this process of discovery and you nurture this process like, hey, don't make fun of each other and stuff like that. I know sometimes that's an issue in my own classroom. There's been certain people or certain situations that like to push that button a little bit more than others. Just be aware that this might be something you have to look out for because it does involve some group work, some interactions with students. So we have this kind of doing activity, this learning in group, and we have us, as teachers guiding the learning process and guiding that discovery. So far, so good. What I like to do is put, a framework involved to kind of help us to this path. Now, there's several main experiential learning theories, and there's many more branches off of the main ones. For example, David Kolb is one you might, if you type in experiential learning into Google, you'll probably see David Kolb as the name come up. And he has this experiential learning style theory, which contains four areas. I'm going to put myself in the spot. There's concrete, reflective, abstract concepts, and experimentation. I think those are the four ones. And basically, it's the gist is a new experience is encountered by the student. The student relates that experience with his or her own understanding. Maybe it's a lot, maybe it's a little bit. The student reflects. Maybe they give new, ideas, or they modify their own thinking, or they strengthen a preconceived notion that they have. Then the student applies what they learn in a doing activity, and then they discover the results. That's kind of like a general 10-second explanation of Kolb's learning theory. A lot more information involved on the internet. There's also a lot of great material that is, if I turn back the clock quite a bit here into my days at the Ohio State classroom, you'll run into names like John Dewey, Piaget, Kurt Hahn. Those are actually influencers of David Kolb. All those researchers, studied and looked into and developed cycles for the kind of I do, I understand mentality, or the I do understand philosophy. So there's lots of great people, lots of great work and theories. I'd love to spend a lot of an hour just explaining the theory of some of these individuals. But for simplicity and time, I wanted to share kind of like the most basic of these learning cycles. So I apologize if you are into one of these. I don't mean to make it super simple, but for my understanding, this is kind of what I have in my mind when I think about this. And I think of it as 3 steps: plan, do, and review. And actually, you can do it probably in 2 steps if you want to get it super simple, is just do and review. So students have some sort of planning or pre-work, they do an activity, and then they reflect upon it. They plan, do, and review, and you rinse and repeat based on maybe a different activity or the same activity. So those are like the 3 main areas. So as we go evolve, or we evolve through this presentation here, and we go along, think about plan, do, and review, and some of these activities that we might experiment on or see that we might be able to implement in our classroom. So we have that kind of plan, do, review mentality or that framework. And as we peruse through our syllabus and our lesson plans, maybe our entire program, I think there's 2 questions we can ask ourselves to help us find good spots for these learning by doing activities. These are also nice bookends too for a possible activity. And so these questions are: what activity or what experience will capture my students' attention and reach them in a meaningful way? So as again, you're perusing all your information that you have. Maybe it's the end of the semester, the end of the quarter, or you're on some type of break, and you're thinking, how can I tweak my classroom, improve my classroom? What can I do to tweak it? What can I do to insert some stuff? What activity will capture my students' attention and be meaningful to them? 2, what kind of reflective experience can I create so students can make sense of activity? Remember, it's just not having them do something. It involves this kind of reflection period too. So the first question, it can help us guide us for any potential places to insert a new activity. Or maybe it's one where we can tweak one. I think that's a good type of question where that might lead me as I'm looking over my materials in front of me, where in my syllabus, where in my program, can really gets their attention. And then the second question is, what kind of reflective experience? I don't want them to actually do it, but I also want them to reflect on it and learn upon it too. So those are 2, I think, good fundamental questions we can ask ourselves as we discover maybe a good place in our work. And there's one additional question I'd just like to point out too. And if you're struggling with a potential spot, because sometimes we work with educators and we're just trying to find a spot in their lesson plan to put in some experiential learning. And when we have some trouble thinking about it, or if we're working with an educator who's having some trouble, we say, what is one topic where you basically tell information to the students? Think of a typical lecture. I'm up on the front of the classroom and I'm just kind of lecturing with my presentation, kind of like how I'm doing today. Where is that experience at in your classroom? And then think about that experience and see if you can flip it a little bit. And does it have to be the entire lecture? Does it have to be 45 minutes, for example? Can it be only 15 or 30? Can it be 5 minutes? And can we do some type of experiential activity that will accomplish the same goals as the one lesson where you're just telling the students a bunch of information? So just think about that. Where is that one topic where I told information, where I was the sage on the stage, for example, that can be adopted into an experiential activity? And again, this will help us, find those potential spots. And I think it gives us pause to say, can we do it here? And sometimes it's no. We have to do this lecture right here, and you move on to the next spot. And maybe, well, I could probably do it here. Maybe I can cut my lecture in half, and we can do some type of interactive activity, some experiential activity. And so when you go through, these are kind of like the basis. So again, we're kind of building the framework to where we understand what it is. So 1, plan, do, review, and ask yourself some questions of like, where can we maybe flip the switch? Where can we do this activity where they learn by doing? We kind of take a back seat as the instructor. We act as like a facilitator or a guide to it. And where can we find information where they're going to learn some great information that they can see a direct tie, some benefit that's going to be on the job? So that's the basic framework for it. So that's basically section 1. It's a nice introductory section. I didn't want to spend too much time on it, but I did want to introduce some ways to find it, because sometimes we have these great ideas, but the difficult part is deep diving into our lessons and deep diving into our syllabi, maybe our programs of study, and working with others to find some good spots. I did want to just take some time to look at it. Now, as we conclude this section one here, I just want to take a moment to see, some questions you could also ask yourself, and you could do this right now if you can, is think about, how do you see your students? Because again, the variable here is going to be your student body. My students are going to be different from your students. We talked about this last week. If you join us, of different generations of student, different types of students, different learning styles. Everybody has a variable here. So what I say is not going to be the end all be all. It's going to be what I see in my classroom with my students, with my programs of study. Whether I teach on ground, online, or hybrid, it's going to be a different a little bit. But how do you see your students? Do you see them enjoying more active participation? Do you see a yearning of this experiential activity where they're learning like on the job stuff more? Maybe they don't see the connection what we're doing in the classroom. And I go, okay, there's a spot. There's a spot where they're like, why am I doing this? I don't see a connection. Well, we're going to do an activity right here. And then I start working on that certain activity. And when you think about your classroom overall and think about your program, even if you're a program director or coordinator or you're a leader at your campus, are students more active? Are they more passive? And is this okay? Because sometimes if they are more passive, it just lends itself to the type of activity, the type of stuff that they're learning in maybe our particular classroom. Do they want to be more active? Should they be more active? And when you think about your students, what kind of positive things do they bring? What kind of hurdles would they bring as well? We call them liabilities on the screen there. And this could help, kind of sculpt to see if this might be a good idea too. So I don't want to just do it just for the sake of doing it, but doing it looking at your students, because that's going to be most important. As we pause here, just to give you some time for a little reflection as we end section one, if you have any questions, and if you were just joining us a little bit later, right on the dot at the top of the hour, you can use your questions area over on your control panel. Type in some questions. I had some people telling me how nice it was and 80 degrees in Myrtle Beach and stuff like that. I really appreciate that. Also, I saw some 38 degrees in Tacoma, Washington. But if you have a question, if you have any comments, throw it in the question. I'll try to answer them in these pause sections right here. So, you have to, when you have these questions, just pop them in there. I'll try to hit them. If I don't hit them now, I'll always try to end early or I'll stay late or both to answer some free for all at the end. You're more than welcome to stay on the line and I'll try to answer them. And again, if you can't stay on the line, you have to leave the top of the hour here. Shoot me an email. I'll be more than happy to answer questions I don't get to today. I'll try to save all the questions. And if I miss any that are glaring, or if you pop an email to me later on, I'll definitely try to get back to it. Yeah, good question. I have a question here. It says, how would you advise handling a student that no matter, and I'll give this to everybody because I know everybody has, I think there's some other great comments in here and great educators in the room. It says, how would you advise handling a student that no matter how you lecture or do activities, they hold this attitude of, and I've seen these ones too, of, let's just get this over with. Let's get this day over with. And that is a good question. I like that one a lot because it is this mentality of like they don't see the purpose of what we're doing in the classroom today, for example, whether it's online, on ground, or it's some hybrid classroom. And it's this mentality of they don't, they might not realize why they're there, and it might be ways to explicitly do it. We've talked about in previous sessions of the way I like to do it on my on ground classroom is if I teaching on ground, I like to put, the why. I talk about my 3-year-old daughter who asks why, after I say everything. So I have this, 20-minute conversation of, why it takes 10 minutes to go to the grocery store. But it's good because then, she understands why. Similar in our students is explaining the why. Why is the stuff I'm learning today? Why do I need to learn basic algebra skills? Well, if I work with my math teacher, I let her or him know that, there are ways in my program that you need to know how to measure, whether you're measuring liquids or you're measuring some other component, knowing some basic math is going to be very helpful. So that's like a general education type thing. When you're in your program, you could almost relate everything you do to something that's on the job. This is going to help you when you graduate. You want to get a job, right? This is what today is going to help you get a job. What you're going to do to kind of show your potential employer you got the skills. So that's going to be a lot of one. I'm going to go through here and see if there's any more. If there's a couple more, I'll try to hit them at the end here. Exactly. There's a lot of good ones. Yeah, online classrooms. How do you get everybody involved in the online? And it's kind of like the way we do things on ground is that how do you get them to be more active? You might have like the four people who dominate the discussion boards, like the four people who might dominate the classroom. There's going to be some tactics you can do to help out and maybe be more active. You don't have to. I mean, there's requirements you can do where everybody has to post. The online school that I teach at, everybody has to post one initial discussion, and at minimum in my rubric that I have, it has to be two. And I always tell them, I'll always err on the longer and always err on more, because I'll give you the benefit of the doubt if you post 4 or 5 and they're kind of short, but you went above and beyond. I'll probably give you full credit. It's pointing that out. It's also, making sure everybody, if you're on ground, you have a system where you get everybody to participate. We can talk a little bit about that more often, but I do like to jump ahead here a little bit and see what we can do. Maybe some of these challenges. So some of these challenges that we're facing, how can we do an experiential activity when students refuse to participate in general? They're just kind of my dad always says I'm on a bump on a log sometimes, and I just sit there all day playing video games or something when I was little. What can we do to make them more active? So we'll kind of take a look at that, and we'll have that mentality as we go through some of these other ones. So as we dump into section 2 here, what are these experiential activities? So as we look at these hurdles, what can we do to make our students more engaged, more motivated to get into these activities? So they're not just sitting here. They're not just like, let's get this day over with. Let's get this activity over with. What can we do to maybe, get these students involved? Now, I did mention briefly is these experiential activities, there's going to be more of the guide on the side rather than the sage on the stage. And that just means you're not directly, telling them information. You're on the side there. You're helping them. You're popping into the groups. You're kind of have these leading questions. And what we want to take into consideration is that we're basically loosening the reins a bit for the students. Now, I didn't say take them off, so don't take off the reins and let them go crazy yet, because there needs to be some guidance during the learning process. You're there, so when they wander off a little bit, you kind of herd them back into the center, or if they're not really moving how we want to, you could have these guiding questions, these guiding activities that help them down the path for the successful completion of this experiential activity. So as we go through here, think of the guide on the side as the mentality that we want to have as we review these potential activities. Now, some of these challenges might be solved in a little bit of implementation of this, what we say, students chase answers to questions. So what do we mean by this? Activities should allow students to chase answers to questions. What does this mean? So instead of giving the answers directly towards them, so saying, here, what do we do here? We do this. We let them think about it, let them to make decisions. Maybe take some risks. They're like, I have no idea, but this is what I would do. And again, there's no wrong answer, but there's no wrong way to begin the conversation in this type of let students chase answers to questions. And what this means is, the students have a voice. They're not passengers on this educational journey, but they're pretty much drivers. They chase after the answers to the questions to have this self-discovery, where they can arrive at an understanding and reflect on the, ideas that they're doing, activity, the skills that they're learning, the knowledge or the performance they're learning on this certain endeavor, whatever this activity might be. We're going to build up to see what kind of activities we can maybe implement. Let me see here. We have people, no sound. We lost sound. Uh-oh. Okay, let me see what is going on here. It's back. All right. Whew. All right, good. All right, good. So if I have loose sound or something, let me know. I'll definitely see if it's my end or it's the interwebs or something that's in between there. So, anyways, I was just saying about the students chasing answers to questions, and as we look about this, there's this understanding of this reflecting of what can we do to help them arrive at this idea, this skill, this knowledge. And so an opposite of this, if you look at the graphic here, is like, think of it, instead of having the students chase answers, sometimes we are think of the students in one of those pulling carts, what they call them, those rickshaw carts that people sit in the back, then we teachers in the front, and we're pulling them across the finish line. I also had somebody mention to her, it's like, we have the students standing at the finish line and we're there running and we're doing the hard work. And then we get to the finish line and tell them this is how you run the race. And I thought that was a good a good answer that or a good interpretation of instead of always giving the answers to the students, let them chase it a little bit. So I want to kind of take a microscope a little bit into this that do review because it's kind of very general, and I kind of want to put up like what goes into this experiential activity. So we have this idea, we have this challenge. What do we do to make our students more involved, more active, more engaged? So we go back to this do review framework, and we have this do part first. That's number one up there in that top corner. This involves, students performing a hands-on task with, little or no help from you as the instructor. Another teacher from a conference once called this hands-on activity, this number one, this do, they called it hands-on, minds-on, which I kind of like a little bit better instead of the hands-on activity. I like hands-on, minds-on. And they would actually say that in the class. I thought that was kind of neat because it's like, you know what, you're definitely using your hands, but you know what, your mind's going to be just as important, if not more so. And so this number one is this hands-on, minds-on part. And it involves, some thinking and comprehension, some application of previous knowledge here, what they're doing. So, the key factor of any experiential learning activity is what students learn from experience, which is in its name. So the doing part. So I think the do is going to be the most important part. So figure out what can we do to have our students engage in a doing part. And then the next couple ones, the 2, 3, 4, and 5, is kind of the lead up into the reflection, the review part. And so number 2 centers around what I call the sharing or reflecting the, what happened part. So when you think of an activity, think of how students will share the results. They're going to share their reactions, their observations with their peers. The sharing equates to reflecting on what they discovered during this activity or this procedure. They relate it to maybe their past experiences. From past, this is why I did it this way. This is why I thought this way. And then number 3 is what is important. This is the kind of the processing, the analyzing. Students will discuss, they may analyze, depends on the activity you do, they can reflect on the experience, and it's the starting of the connecting the dots. What is important? It's that question, like, why, what is important? Why are we doing this? What is important today? So students analyze their experiences and they can discuss how certain problems or issues arose and what was addressed. We're getting to the part, we're connecting the dots of what's so important. And number 4 is the so what. This is that part of like, who cares? What's the purpose of what we're doing today? The non-motivating students. They have this so what mentality. And so this is the connection to the job or career that I always like to implement into the classroom. This is the completion of completing the dots. So students can, identify what we call, using quotes, real world norms that emerge. So they, did an activity, they learned from this doing, they saw why it was important to do it a certain way. And why is it important? So what? Why is this important? Because it connects to this part of the job, this part of the career field. And then lastly, we go into number 5 there, and that's the application or the now what. Students will apply what they learn, maybe in an experience that's similar. Maybe they do the thing over again, and now they have all the correct facts, they have the correct procedures, they do it over again. Or maybe it's something where they jump in and they do something where it's a little bit different. They build off, they have this knowledge now, they have this nugget of information they could take with them into a different activity, and they could build off of this experiential activity now. And maybe it's another activity, whether it's experiential or not, or maybe it's to take it to the test. They're taking it to another activity or a worksheet later on. They have this now what? What can I do with this important piece of information? So as we look in the do and review, I'd like to see do, but I also like to see review. And the review is going to be the important part of maybe help motivating them to show them, this is what happens. This is what is important. So what? This is how it ties to the job. And then now what? Well, this is what you can do to be successful in these other endeavors. So let's take in the microscope a little bit into the different parts here that we have into our experiential activity. So again, we're just starting to build this framework as we get into, what can we do for experiential activities? So now we got the framework, we kind of have the cycle of what we need to do. Let's think of some actual like concrete ideas that what we can do. And now remember, there's 2 types. The first is experiential learning. This is the experiential learning opportunities, and they're field-based. You might have this already, actually. There's internships, externships. Some schools have what they call practicums. There's service-based learning as well. Mentorships where the students can go in and get mentored and do some hands-on training actually in a training environment. Those are the, types of, field-based experiential learning activities. Now, what we have here is a list of common classroom-based strategies. And the first one up is some sort of physical activity that requires active learning, perhaps a procedural type of thing that you have to do in the lab setting with mock clients or mock patients or customers, or maybe it's working on equipment. They get to have this physical activity they get to do. The middle part there is a common one that is shared amongst the different educators that I've come up against and talked to, is this role playing, which I think is a great way to bridge the gap between classroom studying and actually have that in-field experience. If you can't have that in-field experience, but you want to do something a little bit more than like book learning or whatever standard that you see is not working, is doing this role playing. And as an instructor, you can have cue cards or note cards that you can give the students, who kind of give them um, an idea of what they should do or how they should act, what they should perform when they're in this mock role playing environment. And so, one student might be the patient, one student might be the customer, for example, one student might actually be the employee, another one might be a supervisor, a family member, another customer. And you could have these scenarios on there where you can have them experience something firsthand. What happened? Because when you're in the real world, nothing goes book a b c d. There's always something throws you for a loop, and you can through this throwing you for a loop. What happens if the customer does this? What happens if the patient has this? And they have to do it and act it out in front of everybody. And then you can get a couple more people up involved, and then you can have a discussion and reflection on just maybe the group up front. What did they learn? And then turn it to the full class. What did they learn? And so that's another reason, another way we can introduce some of these experiential activities. Some type of physical activity, but it also can be some type of role playing physical activity. And that just helps to get the students actively involved, and you can mock up a real world scenario, mock up what it's like going to be in the job. Some of us have labs in our buildings, so it's real nice to use the lab environment and really practice in that lab environment. And then there's going to be this teaching others, and I think this teaching others is a nice one because it involves the kind of the benefits of teaching someone a skill or teaching someone a topic or procedure. And what this does, this kind of strengthens the student's knowledge by the students who are giving the presentation. People tend to learn better and recall more in different studies when they think they need to present it and teach it to somebody else. So this is a nice way where you can have a benefit to not only the people who are teaching it, but the people who are getting taught too. And so this one again is a more interactive one. You can tweak it to however you like. It doesn't have to be a simple PowerPoint presentation on a generic topic. You can make the presentation into a real world presentation. Maybe they have to present this at a board meeting. They present this to a customer. They're at a health clinic fair, and they have to present it to different people who come up to their booth or their table. And just think of different ways they can teach others. And so those are like the three common ways. And these are just great experiences because, it affects the students. It promotes this peer learning, this reciprocal learning, which has these mutual benefits for the presenters and the audience. There was a teacher I met and talked to at one time, and she said, I implement the see once, do once, and teach once philosophy, which I think lends itself here, is that you can kind of combine different classroom experiences, different learning methods. Students can see it being done, so they're kind of in passive mode first. They can do it once, and so they're more active, and they can teach it, and they can become even more active. And so I thought that was a nice thing to implement, is the see once, do once, teach once philosophy, which I think is really good with these kind of in-class experiential based learning activities. Now, just as a spin-off of some of these, just trying to go in my head and think about ones that people have shared with me and their experiences. Some do case studies, case study discussions. So it's kind of like a physical activity. It's kind of like a teaching others, but they bring in real world scenarios, case studies where there's not always a right answer. Sometimes it involves ethics. Sometimes it involves a scenario like an emergency scenario, or something happens. This is what we did, because a lot of us are practitioners, or we know somebody in the who is part of our career industry in our community, and they might be able to help us out here. But what are some instances where there's not a clear cut answer, and there's going to be discussion, there's going to be debates, there's going to be this thinking, reflecting of what would I do? What do I know about this topic? How can I respond? And so if you kind of think about it in that way, these case study scenarios are a nice way to promote kind of like a stepping stone of not just a simple, read the book or here's a PowerPoint, but getting the class involved a little bit. It's a little bit more active learning. It's also bringing on that on the job experience. So they think, it's important because this is what happens in everyday life. This is what's happening in the hospital down the road. This is what's happening in the legal department in the building, across the block there. And so you can really share these great experiences and stuff that you've brought or other people have brought to help with these case study discussions. Some teachers say they do types of games, which is another type of active, experiential learning. If they tie it in somehow to the job, so they're learning some type of game, but they make the kind of some on the job experience a game. It's mostly involving the gamification of things where they can earn different types of points or badges, or they get some type of reward if they do certain things correctly and they get to move up. It's almost like the game of the job. They get promoted as they do more and more stuff. I thought that was an interesting concept. In similar lines of the physical activities or role playing, you can do simulations. You can simulate an environment, so it's kind of like the role playing. So that's a spinoff. And just different types of group work is also a beneficial way you can do it. If you take that framework, that do and review, and you take a look at those different steps of doing and how we can reflect, of realizing how we can say, this is what's important, this is why we do it, this is how it ties to the job. If you can do that in some type of group activity, that could also be an experiential learning activity for our students as well. And so I thought those are kind of like a good core group of examples to just kind of get the ball rolling. Again, take some of these, general role playing is kind of general, but look at your own classroom. And again, think of those questions we asked earlier and think about, would role playing fit in this scenario? Would teaching others fit in this scenario? Would some type of physical activity, whether it's a case study, for example, would it fit in this scenario? Now, the basis of experiential learning, we talked about the two different types. There's in field and there's in classroom. Now, in classroom, I think we can kind of get the best of both worlds a little bit, and that's with these off-site visits. So I think these off-site visits are kind of nice to take into consideration. At least, you can visit with a group, you can have individuals visit as well. And if you want to stay within the classroom, if within your school campus walls or the area, you could also have these classroom events or these on-site events. So with the off-site visits, perhaps a small class can visit a local business and receive a tour, see things in action, ask questions, and then you could package together with some pre and post activity to promote that plan, do, review cycle. And if visiting a business is not in the cards for you, maybe it can be a trip to, teachers said they've done museum, and it depends on your field, but they do museums, some type of community event, a health fair, some type of, event that's put on by the local business, whether it's, computer, legal, massage therapy. There's all kinds of different ones, but think of your field and think of, what kind of events does our local businesses put on, and maybe it's just an event that they can go to, and you can create an experience there. Sometimes I know an obstacle is that not everybody has the time nor the transportation to get to certain events. So if there is an opportunity, I try to offer it as a choice because, in my area, going to Pittsburgh is a big deal. It's an hour or so away east of here. Going to the big city, parallel parking and stuff was a big ordeal. So it wasn't like you had to go to the one school. There was a traveling, I forget that it was the traveling where you could see the insides of the bodies and stuff. It was really cool. But it was just something that they can go to. The teacher offered extra credit or in lieu of this other project that kind of solved the same objectives, and going to this thing and writing a report on it did the same thing as this other thing that they were doing in class or as a project. So that was just an extra option that they could do in this offsite visit. So I thought that was really cool. Now, if you can't go out or there's no activities nearby or at that time, you can do on-site events. And on-site events is really interesting because you can have opportunities within your school and have some type of kind of like a real world experience, something that's fun, that's exciting, that's meaningful to students. For example, a school I worked with did the Red Cross. They bring in the Red Cross and they do a blood drive, and the medical assisting students will help with the blood drive as much as they can. There's health days, which is all internal. So you can get the dental students, you get the medical students, and if people want to do simple things like not simple things, but simple things as a patient, like the blood pressure, getting my weight done, which was saddening. Um, uh, Getting a teeth mold if I wanted to get my mold of my teeth. I got my teeth molded by the dental students. That was a lot of fun. It was just a nice health day that and then, if you had time in between classes, before or after school, go down there and have a health checkup. And it was just an unofficial health checkup, but done by our students who set it up. They set up a room. They did it as if they were running the real deal. And it was a lot of neat experiences because, again, you have patients, you have other students who are all shapes and sizes, who have, who are easy to take blood pressures from, who's hard to do blood pressures from. So it gave them a real world experience. It was really nice. A sister school that I have in West Virginia, they have a really cool group of IT students, and they have their own kind of IT shop. It's their own little geek squad on campus, which is really nice. So if you have an issue with your computer, bring it to the students, and they will do it for free or reduce costs or whatever you want to do at your school. And again, it's a way to promote this real world activity where I could say, here's what a motherboard looks like. Or I could show them. Maybe I, get on my computer desk and I open up the computer and I show them what a motherboard looks like. Or they could get real world computers with, Windows 95 on them, Windows 10 on them, 2 inches of cake layer dust inside and see what real world computers look like and how to deal with them, how to interact with customers. Because I know, that is a soft skill that we always try to promote is this customer experience. And that helps because that's a real world experience. I saw somebody in there. They put the bodies exhibit. Yes, that's what it was. Someone put in there the students enjoy scavenger hunts, and that's a perfect thing. Again, and that's awesome. It's something that we never mentioned, but a scavenger hunt. Thinking about your students and what you can do, and doing the scavenger hunt is going to be one other type of way to get them out of their seats, get them active, and maybe experiencing something that's going to be helpful for them on the job. So thank you for sharing that. Again, if you have any other ideas, share them in the thing. I'll try to get to them as we go through the slides here, and especially at the very end. So as we go through, and that I think the scavenger hunt was a good segue here, and I appreciate that one as if you were reading my notes in front of me here or on my screen, is that when you start to think or plan of your ideas, think of tweaks maybe. Think of where you can apply that cycle, that plan, do, review. And think about, thinking about the chasing of questions and answers. Think about the, what is important, the so what, the now what, the different stages of the activities. And so you think about, what I think about is like, can we do a lecture, or does the topic lend itself to do a classroom debate? And there's a difference, and you might get a better response in one or the other. So just think about, lecture or debate. Can we do simple vocab exercises, or can we do charades? Someone said they do charades, which is great. I think of if you watch Ellen, she has the thing that you put up to your head. Like there's the app too. You put up your iPhone, your iPad up to your head, and you do charades. They've done some variation of that. And so, someone has to act out something, and then they kind of review it. It's just not a fun game. It's fun because of the game, but at the same time, they review and be like, you know what, you'd been better if you did this charade, because if you did this action, this is more. If you're doing this action, that's different. And that was kind of incorrect. Um, you can do stuff like, straight reading, or is it maybe better for them to do the procedure and learn on their own? What do you know from taking blood pressures? Brian from Chattanooga said they do mock trials. I could talk about, the trials in the legal system. Well, let's just do a mock trial. And, some teachers have the capabilities of their classroom arranging it into, one side here, one side here. Here's where the judge sits. Here's where these people sit. And it really gets them into it. Again, just something simple, and change up the environment really helps them out. And then again, just think back to the games. Can you do, different types of games of Millionaire, Jeopardy? Millionaire is nice because I forced them to talk it out, talk out your answer. Why do you think it's going to be A? I used to watch Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. They'd like, you could see their thought process. You're kind of like in their head, and they're like, I know it's not D because so and so, and I think it's B and C but I'm not sure because so and so. And so you kind of, do these games and you can see what's going on in their head. Now, whether it's on site, off site, one small activity, several activities that form a larger lesson, I think it's just important to have a rubric to help us coordinate the instructions and tasks to goals and objectives. And this not only helps the students hone in on the end goal, and maybe if you'd like to share it with them beforehand, it helps them have like a checklist of things that they make sure they are doing. But it's also almost like a checklist for ourselves. I know many instructors start with the rubric and they work backwards when they do this experiential activity. They think, okay, what's my end goal? What are my objectives this week? What are my objectives for this class? All right, now I got the objectives. What's the rubric? And how can I have an assignment that is experiential in nature but also reaches this type of rubric? So if you think of a rubric or some end goals, some weekly objectives that you have maybe on more passive learning, and think about what can I do to meet the same goals that maybe will, it's just a different way of getting there, a different path of getting there. So I always like to encourage a rubric can help coordinate the instructions and tasks to the assessment. And again, working backwards is nice. So you can say things like, what experience or what activity will capture my students' attention and reach them in a meaningful way. So I think about that. I think, what can I do that's going to be meaningful to them? So they're not going to say, so what? What kind of reflective experience can I help or what can I create to help my students, make sense of the activity? So I always think about reflection. I always just think the process is nice, but I always like to include that reflection, whether it's just one-on-one, it's self-reflection, it's a group reflection. I try to work that in. And then again, I think back to the other question we asked ourselves, what is that one topic where I told information, I was telling information to my passive students, where I was the sage on the stage? What can we do to adopt maybe a more experiential activity? And so for these activities, I just like to think about, do you want to focus on the process or the end product? And sometimes that makes a difference. I think that's a good way to start as you think about your rubric. What's our objective? What are our goals? Is it more important they learn the process of getting there, or is it more important that they get to the end product, or is it something that we divide up into two? Do we have an activity that's about the process and a separate activity that's more about the product? And I just like to pause here. This will come to our second section. I just like to, again, give some examples that I've seen out in the wild that teachers have shared with me. I like to take a look at some of our comments. I think I saw a couple comments ago. It says, our medical assistants go off site to a local fire station and perform hands-on emergency techniques. That's awesome. I know in our area we have I have quite a few volunteer firefighters. I live in a community where we have more volunteer firefighters, and they're always looking for ways to, promote the good cause and having students, come in and help and again man boost or do some fun things. I have, let's see what else I got here. Games like that in class for quizzes and midterms and finals. It does get the students very involved. Yeah, getting students competitive in a friendly nature as well gets them involved. It does help them. I think, that's a direct way of saying, what, you come to class today, we're going to review what is going to be on the quiz. Also, the stuff that we're learning is going to be very important to you on the job. They might get it and you do it something fun. Someone mentioned they play against each other using Kahoot. Now, if you go to Kahoot is a type of student response system. It's like the clickers that you may have. Kahoot is a nice free alternative. It's like the Pull Everywhere is another alternative that I've seen. Getting them involved on that one. Some of those can keep scores and stuff. So I know on the clickers that I have one from Turning Technologies, and it kind of integrates into my PowerPoint and my keynote slides and stuff, and I could keep track of points. So if Brenda gets a bunch of them correct, she might have 500 points in my class, and then maybe David only has 200 points, and Julie has 350, and Rob has 150. I might only do the top five because I don't like to. I don't want people to be embarrassed of being in the bottom section. So I might have the top 10 students, or top 5 students up on the board, and that friendly competition does help. Um, Mock interviews is great. I saw research and employers in the program field, exactly seeing what they're looking for. I think that's great. We get focused, and students get so focused on learning to pass the next upcoming test, but getting them to look ahead, especially if they're still in your program, in the core of your program. Researching employers in the program field, identifying what they're looking for in new hires, having students create questions for employers ahead of time that they could use to do mock interviews. Perfect. That's an awesome. Thank you, Sheila. It's a good one. And should I be focusing on both the process and end product? Yeah, that's a question. It might be. You might, depending on your class, the objectives of your class, the time of when your class is in the grand scheme of your program, maybe it is process first. Maybe you're focused on end product, or maybe it's both. Maybe in week 1 or 2 it's process, but by week 3 and 4 it's end product. So one of the things you have to think about and kind of sculpt. I don't have a great, catch-all answer for everybody, but it does make a difference in how your class is set up, where it is, on what you should focus on. So lots of great ideas. I hope I didn't miss it too many. I'm going to go through a couple more. Scavenger hunts, mystery shopper activities for customer service classes. I like that. Customer service is always big because it's a soft skill that, at least in general, that's when we have our meetings with the local businesses and leaders in the community. It's always something that comes up is soft skills that we need. So it's always helping up with that customer service experience. I can be awesome at filling in bubbles on a test, but if I can't speak to a customer or interact with team members, that's going to be detrimental in me finding a job. So those are all great things. As we come here into our last 10 minutes here of our hour time slot, I do like to conclude and just say, why is this important? Again, to understand, we'll share the why for today. So, great, a lot of good ideas, a lot of great ideas in the chat here as well. But I need some more whys here. So let's conclude with some whys. A big thing, and this kind of ties into some of the stuff that we went over last week. So again, if you were here, I appreciate you guys being here, and if not, all the slides and information's up on the accsc.org website. But it's attracting the different kinds of learners. So the nature of these kind of active, these personalized experiential activities that tie to the job, these are going to attract all kinds of different learners. We may have the mature learner who prefers to they personally experience the value of something in order to be motivated. They want to see the value in something to get them to motivate to learn. Well, this lends itself, these type of experiential activities, tying it to the job, getting them active, letting them chase the questions and answers. That's going to help out a lot. Maybe it's the millennial learner, or the ones that have trouble learning within what I call the standard formal classroom. And I'm using air quotes there. Their non-interest and perhaps attendance or behavioral issues requires some type of alternative teaching and learning method for their success. So maybe it is tying more real world experiences and directly telling them and showing them and letting them participate in activities of, this is why it's important. It's because this relates to the job right here. You're here, paying money for the most part, and learning something because you want to get a job at the end. So this is why it's important today, right now in this class, for you to show up, participate in this activity, to do well and to learn it, because it's going to have such great importance at the very end when you're out trying to get the job and you're out in the job and you want to maybe grow in that job. And so it attracts those type of learners. And then obvious, I think a good one is just the good portion of our students are probably those hands-on experience, those hands-on, minds-on learners. And so having something that's experiential, that's not just sitting at the desk for too long of a time, to have them out, thinking, doing some critical thinking, relating to things that are actually real world, real life things. That's going to get them, get the juices flowing, get them maybe motivated into doing that activity, to seeing the importance of that activity. There's also been studies done where it's been found to be beneficial to minority students who traditionally have not participated in internships or have had a lot of experience with kind of real world or mock real world surroundings due to whatever at their previous school, or just having resources and experience at all in general. And this can lend itself to programs where there are no internships or externships or some type of thing at the end where they can go out and have some real world experience. If you don't have that, having these experiential activities can help too. When I was mentioning about the minorities of who don't have the opportunity maybe or the resources available to them, whether it's at a school or in their local community, to really go out and have this infield experience, and why that might have us rely on this kind of experience providing more. Someone said they thought about the women and girls in STEM, kind of that initiative. If you take a look around, you can kind of see the promotion of these STEM camps for girls, for young girls. And it's they attract them because it's this fun, it's this interactive, hands-on, minds-on type of activity that promotes that curiosity. And it shows them, the stuff you're doing today, even when you're young, it has this meaning for the jobs later on. And they have, people from, tech companies come in and talk to them, just like we can have people in the community come in and talk to them. So I thought that was a nice kind of parallel to think about, what can we do to promote that kind of fun activity, that real world experience, the, prodding of the students for their curiosity towards a certain subject. I think that was um, a nice attitude, a nice way to look at it. And last here, I do want to conclude after saying everything that we just said here in the last almost hour here, is I'm not recommending abandoning classroom-based lecture or non-interactive learning experience. I personally believe both types of learning are valuable to students. For you, as you think about it today, is there a combination, a right mixture, or the perfect spot on that sliding scale for your student body? And think of both ends of the spectrum. Think about total book learning, full on everyday book learning from start to finish versus 9 months or however long, many months of your program or your class of just on the job experience. And so I think about, going into the classroom and learning like I did a lot under my undergraduate studies versus like someone who was an apprentice in the day who learned to be a blacksmith. They were just out there. They didn't take a class to be a blacksmith. They just went out with a mentor or a specialist and learned the whole way. Those are the opposite ends of the spectrum. Where do you feel, the best opportunity lies? And again, my answer might be something very different from what you think your answer might be, or the person down the hallway from you might be thinking of a different answer. Just is one better than the other? Do you think there's in between? And how much do you slide up and down that scale? And then what someone told me too, and I wanted to share this on this webinar, was they said the question they asked themselves is, do you believe it's more difficult to act than to think, or do you think it's more difficult to think than act? Like, that's pretty good. I like that one. So I want to share that one as something we can reflect on. And then again, think about what employers in the area want. What skills do your employers say your graduates lack? Maybe that's something that we can work on with these experiential activities. Is there something that can be solved with more experiential opportunities? Maybe solved with less experiential activities. And again, there's no right answer, as there's variables with our student body, there's variables as us as teachers, and there's variables with opportunities. I know different procedures, different opportunities within that we have in the classroom where we can edit our lesson plans, change things up a little bit. That might play a factor in some things. So it might require some more, not just, what, I am David, I'm going to alter my lesson plan tomorrow or next week. Maybe it's not that easy. Maybe there's a procedure in place where you have to meet with your program heads and different instructors and request a change. But think about that. And that's why it's important to do the homework to see what is the importance of doing these experiential activities, because that might be the key to maybe doing the change in the classroom. And so as we conclude here, just think about those variables. And I hope this presentation, helped you get thinking about at least controlling your own variable and your own experience. If you, maybe have one way or thinking of another, or maybe this changed it, or maybe you're kind of just still on the fence a little bit and you want to explore it more, definitely, I encourage you to explore it more and take a look at the activities again, reflect on that. But I'm hoping, you can control your own variable. And maybe you could think about the other variables regarding your own students as well, and seeing if, again, where are you on that scale of where you should be and where you want to be, and see maybe if there's some opportunities that we can do. So as we conclude here with the last minute, I do want to say, in addition to trying to come up with better and maybe more opportunities, because again, an hour goes by so quick. I am part of a group that provides professional development opportunities at staffandfacultytraining.com. So things like I've been part of teaching strategies, like getting your teacher toolbox. We've done things with soft skills. We were talking about soft skills today. There's even things with the admissions process, being leaders and stuff like that. Staffandfacultytraining.com. There's a bunch of courses you can take that you can get a certificate at the end. And then you can have for your portfolio or for accreditation needs, whatever you might be. I know there's a lot more content out there, so I like to point people there because I do feel pretty proud about the stuff that I have up on there. And just stuff that I can't fit in a 1 hour webinar. And there's a lot of stuff from other SMEs too, that are experts in the field. That's what I like about working at Sina here, is that I still get to moonlight as an adjunct instructor, so I still get to be on the front lines with a lot of you guys out in the classroom, and I think that brings a lot of great experiences into these types of classes. There's a lot of SMEs who have participated, who were admission reps, who are admission reps, who work in the career development field, the career management field, and they supplied some of the content and shared, just like we are doing the webinar here. And I promised I'd share with my email at the very end here. David.grimes@Ciena.com. Ciena is a educational consulting company located here in Ohio, although we work with everybody across the world, I guess, because we have some international clients. I am head of the professional and curriculum building and development, so that's my forte. So if you have any questions, definitely reach out to me. If you have a hurdle that you're running into, or there's something that I couldn't capture in the webinar today that you asked in the thing and I didn't quite maybe explain it real well in the chat, feel free to ask me, and I'll be more than happy to have a one-on-one with you guys. Email me. I'll definitely call you up, have a Skype session, or whatever it might be. We do have specialists who do accreditation consulting and software development. That's not my thing. Our software development are a bunch of very cool techie people who provide student management solutions, learning management solutions, and so on. And accreditation, it's always nice to have someone who can help us out with accreditation. I know that's always a fun process, an important process to do. So it's nice to get all our ducks in a row. And sometimes just having an extra person helps out. We have a team that does that. So I just want to share, if you need help, definitely reach out to me. If I can't do it, I will point you in the right direction. I appreciate your time today as we tip over the 3 p.m. mark. I will stay in the line. I'm allowed to stay in the line a little bit longer, I found out. So if you have any questions, stick around. If not, you guys have a fantastic, I think most of us are in the afternoon now. If you're on the West Coast, it should be early here, a little bit earlier. But hopefully you get to enjoy the day. I appreciate you guys taking the time today to join me. Everything's going to be available on the ACCSC website. The handouts, like the certificate, the sign-in sheet that you can have personally. I don't need a sign-in sheet for myself, but the sign-in sheet maybe that you can have in store for documentation purposes at your campus can be found in the handout section. If you can't access it, or you need to pop off right away, or you can't download it for some reason, feel free to go to the accsc.org website. You go to events on the left-hand side. I'm trying to do this from memory. And you go down about 3/4 of the way down, or all the way down near the bottom is webinars. If you click on webinars, the team there has a great page that has all the different webinars that we've done last week. It will have this one up pretty much in the next day or two. It will have the recording, the slideshow, the certificate on there. So if you can't get the certificate today, definitely jump on the website, get it there tomorrow by tomorrow. End of day, check it out. And if you have any trouble getting off the website, or if your school does not allow you to download links from external websites, let me know. I'll be more than happy to share the certificate that I have with you guys as well. So thank you so much. I'm going to pop over here to the chat and see if I can help anybody out, or have some discussions on the chat. If you want to pop out here, you're not going to hurt my feelings. I know we're about 3 or 4 minutes over time. So again, thank you for joining me. Hopefully I can see some of you guys back on Thursday here. This will conclude it. So maybe I'll try to do another Guest the Educator game. I'd like to do something more fun, or near the end of the week at the beginning. So on Thursday, I'll try to sign a little bit earlier. We can do a Guest the Educator one. I had a lot of people do a perfect score last time, so I'll try to make it a little bit tougher this time. But I hope seeing some of you, and I appreciate everybody who's come through and has been 3 for 3 with me today. I appreciate you joining me this week and last week, and hopefully we'll have one more fun time on Thursday. So thank you very much, and I will hopefully talk to some of you guys on Thursday. All right, thank you. I'm going to say thank you to a couple people. I see Dennis, Lisa, thank you. Joseph, it's my grandfather's name. Thank you very much. Sheila, thank you very much. Jacqueline, I got Mary. Mary's in Georgia. It's 73 and sunny. I love it. I love it. Why do I live in Ohio sometimes? I have to ask myself. I think I could probably do this presentation on the balcony looking over the beach, I believe, and I don't think you guys would mind. Username and password for facultytraining.com. You don't need one. You can feel free to look around right now. I encourage you to look around. It doesn't cost anything to go to it. Take a look around, look at the different types of materials. What we do too is, starting this year, we're going to save a lot of the webinars that I do up on the website. Though I do some with ACCSC, but also do some with the different state organizations as well. And we're going to start saving those. The ones that are free, like this one, I'm going to save those to the staff and faculty training website, and that way you can have those for free. So it's another opportunity between the ACCSC website, which has a lot of great content. If you go on their website first, scroll down on that webinar screen. There's some that I've done last year with them. They're very good at keeping that content up there, and it's just a great way to have a kind of repository for professional development opportunities. And we're going to start that too a little bit on staff and faculty training. I just want to make sure we can gather all those up for you guys. I know as a educator, sometimes it's tough to find good professional development, and I'd like to have a one-stop shop place. So I'm going to try to. That's my one big goal this year is to have a one-stop shop place. So having maybe more blog type of articles, more webinars shared on there, more courses up on there. And so if you shoot me an email, I'm like, you know what, I was looking on staff and faculty and I didn't see a course that I really am interested in, let me know. And I'll see what I can do to either make a free webinar, or if it's something that has interest elsewhere, we can do types of, webinar training or even in-person training. If you go to Siena.com, we do have professional development opportunities. Like I said, I'm going up to Toledo area at the beginning of March, and then I'm going down to the Columbus area end of March. So I do have a little tour going on, and I love webinars because I could see like this one had hundreds of people in it, and it's fantastic. I do like doing the little ones too, little intimate ones, because it's nice because you get to be more personalized. You can ask all kinds of questions, and you have me at your disposal, and I'll be there all day, half day, whatever you need. But a lot of that's going to be up on that Sina.com website if you want to look at all the different opportunities, the staff and faculty training.com. Let's see what else. I have a lot of people in very good weather. Again, you're making me think about my time in Ohio, because this is actually a good day today. But usually, I think all the snow has. I think there's like little pockets of snow, but it's been like rainy and mushy here. But I think all the snow has finally melted. And thanks, John, Chris, Jessica. I appreciate it. Thank you for sticking around on here. Thanks, Suzanne. Thank you so much. I'm going to kind of scroll up a little bit here. I have. All right, Kelly, you know what? I saw that about mock interviews. I'll mention that. Let me just make a note. Let me grab my old time tech, which is my pen and paper here, and put mock interviews in mock interviews. And let me see if I can get you some more information. That's Kelly. And I think, Kelly, I don't know if you're sticking around or if you've left already, but I will get you hooked up with some mock interviews. And I said that's a good idea. Process would determine the quality of the end product. I like that. That's the question between process or end product. Sometimes the process is just as important as the end product. I like that. Let's see, the medical assistant's going offsite for the fire department. That's great. Looking at your local fire department, actually had someone who wanted to be a medical assistant nursing student who was on the fire department. So we got to kind of intertwines both of those a little bit. And so that was really nice to have that. I said the local Red Cross. If you're not in the medical field, and the medical field is a little bit easier sometimes, but if you're in other ones, there's other businesses that you can participate in. I know there's like health fairs that you can do. Different organizations do different things, whether they do different events, different I think community events go on that might be part of whatever field you're in. Get involved in that and seeing if you can get students out to go into something so they can see the real, the quote unquote, the real world. I do like the Kahoot and the different types of response systems. When someone mentioned Kahoot, and that was a great one because it's a nice way to implement this kind of fast feedback. So when you're trying to get feedback from a group and you're prodding them along for questioning, it's a good way for students could, quote unquote, raise their hand. They can chime in and, the screen could turn green, or they could answer a question. They could get it right or wrong, this answer right away. And so I think that was a good one. I said, I have actual physical clickers, but Kahoot, pull anywhere, pull everywhere, pull anywhere is a good alternative too. I think a lot of people had Kahoot my last webinar, which was really nice. I do like Kahoot. The people at Kahoot are good people. And I like the researching employers in the program field. Sheila, I think she left already, but she had a good part about, researching employers in the program field. Maybe not as a career. We have a career prep class where I teach that, and that looks like a perfect place for that. But even maybe within our, within our classes, we can have them looking out. If we're teaching some type of like a terminology class or some type of class that's not quite at the very, very end of the rainbow for them yet. Sometimes looking at those, those Indeed job boards and stuff, and looking at the qualifications looking for. sometimes that's been helpful. Seeing like these are real, these are, they need jobs, or these are the job postings, and do you have what it takes, and will you have what it takes? And look at this, they need this, and this, and kind of relaying that back to, what, when you're in this class, you'll definitely learn about this requirement here that they put on, and this requirement here. And next semester you'll be in this class and you'll learn about this here. So you're setting yourself up really nicely to be a favorable applicant to this job if it existed. If you had applied today. And so I think, again, relating it to the real world, to the job, always. Like I've mentioned before, if you've been on the ones last week, I always like to put how this relates to the job every day if I can. Every day there should be, why is this important? Because it relates to this job performance, this job function, this job need, whatever small or large it might be. And it has to be every day. It can be every week. These are the job skills you're going to pick up this week, and I just put it up in the corner of the left corner of the board, and they always have it up there, so they always see it. Gotcha. One of the things I've okay. Aha, Gary, thank you for sharing that one. Gary had something he said, and he said he uses word cloud so they could see the most important words in the job description. I love that idea. So basically, what I envision is just looking at the job boards and just copying and pasting. That's a nice thing we do for certifications. We look at what is the hot certification at the moment. I was talking about in a previous webinar the CompTIA certification exam. That's the one I work in closely at the moment with my online classes that I teach. Um, is it CompTIA still, or is it something else? Is it A plus? Is there any need for the IT fundamentals class? Is there a switch to CCNA, the Cisco certification? Is that needed? And doing that job board, that looking at the job boards and typing them in the word cloud, because the word cloud, basically, if you've seen a word cloud, you say you have a paper, or you have a website, you copy all the words into a word cloud program. I think Wordle's one, I believe. I don't know if Gary, you're still on, but I've used Wordle before. There's a couple of different ones. Dumping all that information, whether it's a text file or you could copy and paste into like a program like Wordle, which is free, and it pumps out a word cloud so you can see the most important descriptions, adjectives, or words that are in the job. So if you did if you copied and pasted a couple different types of job postings and put them into Wordle, for example, into a word cloud maker, you're going to see some familiar terms, and those terms will appear a lot bigger in the cloud, whereas some ones will be smaller. So you can visually show, and I like that because it's one thing. It's about saying, here's the important jobs, but visually seeing it and seeing how big communication, teamwork, or this certification is, that's going to be very important. And sometimes when you see, you need to be this certified, you need to have this accreditation, you need to have this type of skill, seeing that's going to be really nice. So thank you, Gary, for sharing that. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of free sites. Thanks, Gary. Yeah, there was one. So yeah, if you go Google Word Cloud and take a look at it. If you have never done Word Cloud before, it's a nice visual. And for me, I'm a visual person, so I like seeing visual stuff. So I like to do visual. So Word Clouds is great. Thank you so much, Gary. Let's see, Travian, interviews. Yeah, information that can help prepare students for the interview. Um, I'm going to lend myself to and borrow the great ideas of our career prep department, our career management department. A lot of them are like the mock interviews. We've had students, and I was part of when I was the academic dean on an on-ground campus. I always participated in mock interviews because it's one thing where they're interviewing like their teacher that they're familiar with, but me as an administrator, I was a little bit more scarier, I guess. Or people didn't have me. Some people had me in class, but not a lot of them. So I would try to do the students I didn't have in a certain field. I would do that with them, and I would do it in my office, and I would mimic what it would be like, and then kind of do a report back. So we did mock interviews with different administrators. If you have good rapport and there's opportunities with people in the community, we've also had people come in who might do like a talk for one of the career prep class, and then the next day or next week they might do actual interviews, and they could sit in. We've done group interviews as well. Sometimes it's become more popular to do group interviews where there's myself, maybe someone from the community, myself, my academic dean, or my campus president sits beside me, and they do mock interviews. Sometimes the campus president is the scary person for the students. So him or her asking questions a little bit different than me asking questions. Doing mock interviews, preparing We have our students do LinkedIn profiles because we always say, the first your first impression is probably not going to be your resume, or it's not going to be you walking in the door. It's going to be what you're like in the digital world. So we always tell them to clean up their social media profiles, and they think they hide stuff, but really looking at those things, there's an activity where we actually look at, if I Google my name, what do I come up with? If I try to, what is on our social media profile if we have one, and then we develop a LinkedIn profile for students who wish to do it. If they don't, I know some people have privacy concerns, so we don't force them to make LinkedIn profiles if there is a reason, and usually there's a good reason why they can't have their information online for people to access. But they can adjust the privacy settings in LinkedIn, or they can really fine tune their resume. But making a great LinkedIn profile can help because a person who HR department or someone is looking for our students might be able to pop in there and look at the students and see their degree. They see your school, and if your school is a good reputable school in the community, that's going to be a +1 in the category for your students. So I think those are some great ideas that you can do. Having them, we used to have them dress up every Friday or Thursday, just so they get used to wearing dress up clothes, which is sometimes is a big deal. It was for me I remember when I was on the basketball team, I had to wear a tie in middle school, and that was a big thing. So I had to learn how to tie a tie. Some people have learned tie a tie. Some people don't have a lot of dress clothes. So it's like getting in the habit of preparing to do those things. And again, that's something that you can do on a Friday where they dress up, and you could do some experiential activity where they do a mock interview. They do something on the job. We have our medical people, they make them wear the scrubs all the time, just getting used to wearing scrubs. And so they have to not only get used to wearing them, but getting used to maintaining them, washing them at home, making sure they have clean ones. And if they don't have it, they can't go to work, so they can't come in the classroom. So they do similar things like that. Preparing for interviews too, just going back to that one, I just think, giving them different types of questions, the mock questions is very helpful, and just putting them in front of people that they're not familiar with as much as possible really helps. And doing group ones sometimes helps too. Bringing them into that office that they're not familiar with. Maybe they're used to sitting in the classroom, so it's not a big difference. Maybe it's meeting you and another teammate of yours in the a room that's not being used, the teacher's lounge, the some admissions office that's not being used at the current time. Somewhere it could be the classroom, but it could be setting up in the corners, just you and the student and the campus president, for example. Those are some good things. So thank you for sharing that one. Let's see, I've got a couple more here. I said I'm approaching about 20 after, so I know people get antsy. I don't want to step away too much. Thank you, everybody. I said this ACCSC has the nicest people. I'm telling you, you guys are some of the nicest people I see. You guys always have great answers and great feedback in here. Good. Yeah, lifting. Yeah, just all about finding the spots. So it's just finding the spots. I'm not saying again this is the end all be all, and this is going to clear up everything. You're going to have no retention problems. You're not going to have student issues and stuff like that. But it's finding those spots and seeing. Sometimes when you look at the program over as a whole, just as it lends itself to the instructor, and it depends on your fellow coworkers as best as anybody, but looking at where are the gaps maybe in classes. Maybe this one class just goes through and they're always doing lecture and students are not succeeding there. Well, why is that? Why can they succeed maybe in this other class but not in mine? And it's taking a look at that and taking a look, is there more experiential activities? Is there less? Just taking that big reflective part and not just, doing it day in and day out without having that reflective period. I think having that reflective period, whether it's a faculty meeting or the end of the month or end of the session, whatever that might be, and taking a look and seeing what succeeds and what not. And if you're a school leader, it's looking at that as a whole and seeing, why do people succeed in David's class, but not in Matthew's class, for example? Why do people have issues, and maybe they're taking the same class at the same time, just different times of the day. Why is this person doing good here but not here? And taking a look at and comparing it, and it just might be something with the teacher. It might be something with the way the information is presented. Maybe it's the topic. Maybe the topic's a lot more difficult, so that class lends itself to be taught in a different way. Maybe it is a lot more of the lecture-based work and worksheet that remote or not remote that rote memorization technique. Because again, we talked about teaching. We need them to have skills to be successful in the workplace. Part of that is teaching them to be successful on certification exams, licensure exams, and being successful so they can graduate. That's step 1A into getting a career, right? They have to graduate first, and then they have to 1B is pass that certification exam if you guys offer it, or some type of licensure exam, and then it's getting that job and getting that interview. So there's a couple things at the tail end that we'll have to teach for, and sometimes it is it's that book work, and it's that sitting in the classroom and having that direct instruction instead of the indirect instruction. That's going to be most beneficial. All right, so let me just check a couple more here. You guys are awesome in the chat. There's so many good things. All right, so as I think that's pretty much everything. If not, just start typing in caps at me, and I will make sure I get to here in a little bit. But just to close out, just so everybody is good. If in case you joined late, you can download the certificates. You can download the recording of this, and I'll share my slideshow up on the accsc.org website. You can go to events on the left-hand side menu, and then go down to webinar. Not only will this one be listed, but the two from last week, and then the one on Thursday, once we wrap that one up, will be available on Friday or definitely by Monday. And so you'll have the 4 presentations available whenever you need to, the recordings available whenever you need to, and then the certificates that you can edit in Microsoft Word. I downloaded the other day, and you could edit your name. I know sometimes for accreditation purposes, you might have to put my name, so definitely type in somewhere David Grimes. You can put my email if that needs to be on there as well, and you can edit the certificate for a little bit. It's a Microsoft Word document, so it's nothing crazy. It's not like you have to have super Photoshop skills to edit the certificate. But you can download it in Microsoft Word, edit certificate, save it as a digital file, print it out to put it in the teacher portfolio, and you should be ready to roll. Other than that, I think that's all the housekeeping rules. We'll be back on Thursday, same time, same place here on the webinar, and we'll conclude our kind of looking at diverse ways to teach, to learn, and to help our diverse student population. And again, I can't say it enough. I do appreciate you guys taking now an hour and a half of your time joining me here today. I appreciate you guys letting me share my thoughts and my opinions and my knowledge that I've gotten from all of you guys, actually, from different conferences, different site visits. I do like to compile all these and save these for these different webinars, because I think the nice thing is that we have a lot of great ideas, and coming to a webinar like this allows us to share it. And then afterwards, if you want to share some more, or if you have some things that you would like or you didn't quite get out of the webinar, definitely email me. Again, I like to say I'm an extended faculty member, and I'll help you out whenever I can. And if you need help in some other department, I will be more than happy to help you out. Let's say if it's software accreditation, if you go to sina.com, or back one is the staff and faculty training.com. There's a couple recordings. We record some of the videos like we do. Like, instead of listening to me, you could see me talk as well. And we put up like graphics beside me, text beside me. So if you're more of a visual learner instead of an auditorial learner, that's a very nice way. It keeps track of your classes, and you can go into and get your certificate. It saves your certificate always in a digital form. You can print it out as a PDF, and you can put that in your file. So we do like to have certificates on there as well. And then we're starting to save our webinars on there. So once I go to not ACCSC, but maybe there's some other webinars that I do around the Ohio area, the Midwest, or if I go to the East Coast or West Coast, I'll try to start saving those and sharing those on staffandfacultytraining.com. So if you peek back, if you kind of just bookmark it today and peek back in a month or 2 months, or sometime when it's when we're complaining because it's so hot outside, hopefully there'll be some great content you can have on there, and that will help you in your professional development opportunities and in your class opportunities. So with that, I'm going to take one last look at the chat, and I would, again, thank you so much. I hope you enjoy your day. I'm going to join mine, and I appreciate you taking me in today. I always like doing this, and now I'm back to doing my grind to the work. I like doing this as my fun kind of break in the day. It's nice in the afternoon to get to talk to you guys and have some fun and get to learn a lot of good stuff. I'm learning a lot of good stuff from you guys. Afterwards, I take notes, and I probably spend another half hour taking notes from the different chats and different things that we talked about today. So thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic afternoon. I appreciate it.